All right, hello everybody. Lab 9. Let's jump into it here. I'll share my screen. Hope you're having a great week. And Lab 9, I hope it's not too bad for you here. So let's go to my browser here, and I'm in my VM. And let's go to the week 9 content. The announcement has good information in it, and I will elaborate on that information for week 9. Okay, so in here, in the outline, you see that this is a 3-part series again on large data imports. Okay, the outline here talks about exams. There are no exams this week. All right, or the next week, or not until week 12 now. All right. So that's the main thing to highlight here. Let's go to the lab instructions. Before we do that, so in the videos here, there's a video. It doesn't give you a whole lot of information. And watching my video here, I think I'll cover a lot more than will be covered in that video, and I think I include everything that is in that video. Okay, when we go to the lab instructions, you see in here 2 other videos. Use external tables video tutorial, import transactions video tutorial. These are old lectures, and I don't think you need to watch those. I don't think those are particularly useful now, and I'm going to walk you through what you need to know for this lab. Anyway, all right. So to the lab instructions. Okay, so lab 9 calls lab 8, which calls lab 7, which calls lab 6, which calls lab 5. Okay, so if your lab 5 is correct, and your lab 5 calls the create Oracle store and the seed Oracle store. So if your lab 5, your lab 6, and your lab 7, and your lab 8 are all good, then lab 9 should not be a problem. And I think it's mainly an exercise in following the instructions, the details of the instructions, and not getting lost in the peripherals, the business explanations and things that are also included in here, and the Linux commands and those things. So just stick with me, stick with the instructions that I highlight for you here, and shouldn't be a problem for you making it through lab 9. All right. As always, you should embed the verification queries inside your lab 9 script. Make sure you do that. Make sure you put in the comments or the select from dual to label your steps and label the validations. All right. Step 1, create the following transaction table as per the specifications. But do so understanding the business logic of the model. After creating the transaction table, create a unique index on the natural key and name it natural key. All right. And then create also the sequence, transaction S1 sequence for that table. Now, don't worry about this implementation note, the business rule. Let's talk about what this transaction table is for a minute. Okay, when someone comes in, so a rental, we've talked about, and I've said so far, right, a rental is a transaction, okay? Somebody comes in and rents, and so a rental is a transaction. But in our business, we actually have to include another type of transaction, and that is where the DVD doesn't play, there's some problem or whatever, and the customer returns, does a return, and needs to have a credit for that rental. Okay, so they come in and rent, and that's one type of transaction, or they come in and need a credit, and that is a second type of transaction. So we're going to have a transaction table so that we can handle both of those cases. Okay, so you'll see that the transaction table looks a lot like the rental table, but it's used to handle what the instructions here call debits and credits. Okay, so the transaction table has this transaction account, and the transaction account means in our ledger, in the books of our business, and we have a debit account on our books, and that account number is all ones, as you see there. And then we have a credit account in our ledger, and that account number has all twos in it. Okay, so the debit account recognizes payment for a rental. Somebody comes in and rents and pays us money via their credit card, and we call that a debit, and that goes into our debit account, the all ones account. Okay, and then someone comes in and says, this DVD didn't work, and we give them a credit back to their credit card, and therefore we need to take money out of our business. And so we log that transaction, and we use the 222 account. So a credit recognizes a refund for a rental. All right. So we need to make some entries into the common lookup table to support this new transaction table also. Okay, so here are the specifications for the transaction table. So first thing before you do the create table, you do the PL SQL drop table code. You always have to have that. Always when you create a table, have that PL SQL drop table code before the create table command. Okay, And then you have your create table, and here are the specifications. And carefully follow the specifications, right? And so do not null where it says not null. And looking to see, looks like everything's not null except where we have foreign keys and the primary key anyway. Carefully follow the specifications. One to note here, okay, transaction amount. And you see a footnote down here, transaction amount column uses a float data type to designate that the column may contain an integer or a decimal value. Okay, don't worry about that comment. Okay, transaction amount is a number. Okay, so it's a number data type, and we can put numbers, we can put integers and decimal numbers into a number data type. And when we go down here and look at, here's your validation query, right? And we look at the data types. So these things that were specified as integers, you see are numbers. You make everything a number, okay? Integers, you make them a number data type. And this transaction amount, you make it a number data type, okay? All right, let me see if there's anything else we need to mention here. Talked about the transaction S1 sequence, and note that the sequence should start with a default value of 1, okay, rather than 1001, which we've been using for our other sequences, okay? So just carefully follow the instructions, everything will be good. You have your validation query and your validation results. This is what it should look like. And then the natural key. Okay, let me talk about a natural key, what a natural key is for a minute, okay? The natural key in the relational model, there is, for a table to qualify as a relation according to the model, every row is uniquely identified somehow. In other words, there are no duplicate rows. There are no rows that are exactly the same in a relational table, okay? So that means that a column or some group of columns will uniquely identify that row. Now, we've been using the sequence generator for our primary keys and generating a primary key, 1001, 1002, right? That's really an artificial key. And it works to make every row unique, and that qualifies as a relational table. But in the model, the purest sense, the columns, the actual data, the attributes of the relation, one or more of those columns, one or more of those attributes will uniquely identify that row. And here, that's a natural key, okay? And so we're going to create a unique index on the natural key, and you see it has the 6 columns from the transaction table. So you know how to do that, create a unique index with those columns. Somewhere in here, I'm just checking to see, yeah, he has the created by, creation date, last updated by, last updated update date, okay? And here they are in the results. So Brother McLaughlin refers to those columns as the who audit columns, okay? That's that's his terminology to just identify those columns as our internal administrative columns created by creation date, last updated by, last update date, and he refers to those as the who audit columns. Okay, so you'll see that in here, and that's what is meant by the who audit columns. Okay, so you create the natural key, you have the verification query and the results. And I'll just make the point here, always make sure that your results match the expected results that are given here. If they don't, then something is wrong, okay? And we've found sometimes these results are wrong, but question it, right? Do you need to fix something in your code? Get with Josh, get with me, and make sure that your results match the expected results, and then you know you've done it correctly, right? So these are the answers. The answers are given you in the lab. Your code comes up with the right answers, then you've got everything correct. Probably, right? Probably. Okay. There are ways to, I say probably, and I should explain that, right? That there are ways to come up with the correct results in a way that really isn't a correct result under all circumstances. Right? We saw that in Lab 7, where it is possible to come up with the correct results, but not really have the correct code, and that could cause problems later on down the road when the data is different and the code is not really handling the data correctly. Okay, enough said about that. So now we're going to insert the following 2 transaction type rows and 4 payment method rows into the common lookup table. And here's where he refers to the who audit columns, right? So, and you can hard code those, right? One sysdate, one sysdate, but make sure that your inserts have that as usual. Okay, and then the verification query table, okay? Next, step number 3. Create the following airport and account list tables per the specification. This implementation, no, don't worry about that. What we're going to do, we're going to, this account list, we're going to generate this list of account numbers. We're going to standardize the account numbers for the memberships, okay? And so we're going to generate a list of account numbers. And then based on where someone lives and the airport that is closest to where they live, we're going to assign them an account number and actually change the account number in their membership record to this new account number. And so this is to support the business migrating to a new business model. He's got it right here, toward airport kiosks rather than stores. Okay, so again, we're going to create this count list. We're going to generate, with some PL SQL code, we're going to generate a list of standardized account numbers. And then we're going to assign those account numbers to our memberships. Okay, and those account numbers okay, hang on here and let me see what happened with my VM here, and then get that restarted, and then we'll resume.